Hello, hello, hello! It's me, 09. Now we'll be watching DeDunking. Rogan proves Zahi Hawaas is fraud. Part 1. Tepi. I really like this guy. I have disagreements with some stuff he says, but he is really good what he does. He is in the middle of like esoteric archaeologists and like scientific archaeologists. So he makes good stuff. Please watch him. I will also link the video in video description. I hope so. Let's start the video.
You know, sometimes things are not at all what they appear to be. Sometimes we deceive ourselves and we make assumptions that are false. Like perhaps a person who seems to be one thing is actually not that at all. Hi, my name's Dan and welcome to DeDunking. Now before we get into this, I do have a retraction to make. In my last video, I conflated the 5th Dynasty and the 15th Dynasty sites. There was two different finds that I put the two together in the video and made it like one site. So why did I do that? Well, I didn't make the mistake, I repeated the mistake. I'd been reading articles about the 5th Dynasty site, the one with the pink door and the altar, and then I came across the Fox News article that had the interview with the American dude, and I was already aware that the Egyptians had said, hey man, this is an Egypt-only deal, so when I saw it, I'm like, well, that's weird. And then I saw that the site was all, like he had saw all this different stuff, and he was thinking it was something different, so I made a mistake. And you egg on my face, and I want to quickly thank Therese Clark, aka the average Aussie Egyptologist on Twitter, even though she's antagonistic to people that I like, and I'm antagonistic to people that she likes. We managed to get along well enough with each other that she sent me this information without being like, hey, you son of a gun.
Blue sky.
We managed to get along well enough with each other that she sent me this information without being like, hey, you son of a gun, you got everything wrong. And she understood that it was going to take me a hot minute to get this taken care of because, look, man, I just went to the Sage Wall with Jimmy and Mike and a bunch of other people that I met, old friends and new alike. It was great. And I had a trip planned. I'm a single dad. I don't have all the time in the world. So I didn't and I'm not just going to take somebody else's word for it. I don't care who you are. I'm going to look into this myself. So when she told me that, she was polite enough to understand it was going to take me a minute, unlike some other people who just made a big stink about this. But anyway, I did repeat an error, and that sucks. But you have to kind of ask yourself, why would I have accepted this and not looked into it? Which, in hindsight, I guess I should have double-checked more and looked and seen if there was the possibility that they'd conflated the two sites. But I would have assumed that a professional news outlet would have done that. But oh well. Again, egg on my face.
I don't know much about Fox News, but I heard there are more the best right now with like normal news sites. But knowing how news sites are now, it doesn't really say much. I guess it's more trustworthy because it isn't like strongly partisan like some other ones. But, oh well.
But why would I just so quickly believe that? Well, I don't know if any of you have watched the Joe Rogan Zahi Hawaas interview, but if you did, it should kind of let you know very well the issues that we have with Egyptology. Because if you're not aware who Zahi Hawaas is, he is literally like King Poop of Turd Island when it comes to Egyptology. He's like been the number one Egyptologist in the world for, I don't know, 30, 40 years. All my life, he's been the dude I'd see on specials and whatnot. Him and Mark Lenner, who is the other primary Egyptologist of the last 30, 40, 50 years. These guys have co-authored numerous papers and books together. They are a powerhouse in the world of Egyptology. So to see Zahi Hawaas on Joe Rogan not know a lot of things that seem very basic, well, let's just start with Tepi. Let's see what Zahi Hawaas has to say about it.
Tell me about Tepi.
What's Tepi? What's this?
You never heard about... So
Tell me, what is this list?
Egyptian, Tepi refers to the first time or the first occasion.
Who said that?
This is an AI. It refers to a mythical golden age of Egypt where gods lived on earth and civilization was in its infancy. This period is often associated with the beginning of creation and the establishment of societal structures. Have you've never heard of that before?
No, and this is not true.
No, if you've watched my videos in the past, or you watched Graham Hancock's stuff, or Robert Bauval, or so many other alternate historians, you're going to know what Tepi is, right? It's the mythological Egyptian first time, the time of creation. To quote Graham and Robert in the book they co-authored together, The Message of the Sphinx, there are repeated references in the Book of What is in the Dua and numerous other funerary and rebirth texts to Tepi the first time, the remote epoch when the gods were believed to have come to earth and established their kingdom in Egypt. Or on the website ascendingpassage.com, when they're discussing the Memphite kings list, we see this. The Egyptians began their chronology with an ancient high culture they called Tepi that existed about 35,000 BC and was ruled by 10 gods. Then came 6 dynasties of lesser gods and 9 dynasties of demigods who ruled Egypt for tens of thousands of years. Well, of course, the woo peddlers believe it was real, but what do actual Egyptologists say? Well, according to German Egyptologist Jan Assmann, and yes, I mispronounced that name on purpose. In Egyptian cosmology, however, there is not creation, but rather an initial ignition, the moment of transition between pre-existence and existence. The Egyptian term for this moment is Tepi, literally the first time. This moment separates the primordial chaos, pre-existence, from the cosmogenic process, not from the accomplished cosmos. And according to Belgian Egyptologist Tom Gilland, this is common knowledge to Egyptologists. Tradition and the respect for tradition were deeply rooted in Egyptian civilization. For most Egyptians, tradition meant reproducing what has been done before, ideally what has always been done since the beginning of time, what they called the Tepi, the first time. This, of course, is common knowledge in Egyptology and does not need special emphasis. But I'm going to put some special emphasis on it because I'm me. But there's really 2 things to point out here. One is that they claim that Egyptologists know all this stuff. According to Gillen, Egyptologists know what Tepi is to the point we don't even really need to talk about it. The second thing worth pointing out is the difference in spelling. This one seems to be lacking vowels, pretty common thing when I see the translations of hieroglyphs, but I'm no expert, so don't crucify me there. I think I see A sometimes, so maybe I'm getting something wrong, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. My point is this is the translation, and if you're looking for information and you're trying to find it from more academic sources, that will help you a lot. Also, we're going to revisit this spelling, so put that in your little noodle there as we go forward. So here we go. Tepi is something the Egyptologists and alternate historians alike believe in, and so I suppose we should probably learn what it is. I mean, since Zahi Hawaas, the number one Egyptologist in the world, doesn't know, or seems to not know, what other Egyptologists say is so common that we don't really need to talk about it. Maybe that's why Zahi doesn't know. But It seems like maybe some of my followers don't know, or at least that there's definitely going to be some tidbits or some information to get into. So let's start from the alternate historians, and then we'll talk about what the academics have to say about it too, and we'll give basically a good general rundown of Zep Tepi from both sides of the fence. First thing we'll talk about is, Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock, but Bauval is really the one who paved the way on this work. And he basically, his version of Zep Tepi is attached to the Orion-Giza correlation. And, here's a good translation, or good interpretation of it here. Zep Tepi, the first time, is often referred to in Egyptian texts, the remote epoch when the gods were believed to have come to earth and established their kingdom in Egypt. In the author's view, the first time refers to a time long ago when Orion was at its lowest meridian point, just above the horizon to the south. Now Orion appears quite high in the sky, although it is...
I don't know if I remember this correctly, but the pyramids of Giza are situated in place that the tops of pyramids touch some stars of Orion constellation. Don't quote me on that. I read about that long ago. I just remember that there is some correlation with some stars and the tops of pyramids. Generally, a lot of ancient people built their monuments in reference to astrology. There is belief that Sphinx was built in a time when constellation of Leo dominated, and when the constellation of Taurus dominated, there was more emphasis on bull iconography. And there is also argument that Christian age is strongly related to Pisces domination, and Pisces domination basically Pisces iconography basically is fishermen in nature, so the symbol of Christ, one of them is looking like a fish. Icarus, I think it's pronounced... I don't remember. I guess I should learn more about my religion.
Still a southern constellation. The apparent movement of Orion in the sky is due to the Earth's precession cycle, which is of a duration of 25,920 years. According to Robert Bauval, this puts Zep Tepi right around 10,500 BC, and most alternate historians seem to agree with that, or they take it they follow the same precession of the equinoxes, the 25,920 year cycle, and so they'll take it back another 26,000 years, or even 52,000 years I've seen in a couple of places. So at any rate, it is attached to the precession cycle, which is it's like if you spin a top and it spins one direction and then the axis of the top spins the other. That's what the Earth does, and that changes the elevation of things like...
Yeah, this is connected to what I say. Because depending of this precession, different zodiacs tend to dominate in sky. I guess it was summer solstice. Yeah, not summer I know, spring equinox. Equinox, like, there was a time that it started in areas, but now is more in Pisces, I think. I can make other video about this if you want. I would need to prepare more, though.
Like Orion in the sky over thousands of years. So, using real science, this is what Robert Bauval's position is, and this is a very common one. Again, to quote from him in Message of the Sphinx, "In their most profound and beautiful of religious texts, the ancient Egyptians spoke of the time of the gods, Zep Tepi, literally the first time, with unshakable conviction that there had indeed been such an epoch. In other words, they believed that Zep Tepi had been an actual historical event. In line with the prevailing dualism, they also believed that it had been projected and recorded in the catalogue of the starry sky. Indeed, it was a story that was reenacted endlessly in the cosmic setting by the cyclical displays of the celestial orbs and the constellations. What they had in mind, in other words, was a kind of cosmic passion play, expressed in the language of allegorical astronomy, in which each main character is identified with a specific celestial body. Ra was the sun, Osiris was Orion, Isis was the star Sirius, Thoth was the moon, and so on and so forth. Now, by and large, this is accurate as far as the celestial bodies representing different gods. And Graham and Robert are not the only people to bring up this archaeoastronomy angle when they discuss this sort of thing. There's many alternate historians that do. And there's a lot of actual historians that will get into the actual archaeoastronomy side of it as well, a lot of actual academics. But they are definitely less interested in that side of it, it seems, than they are in other things. And when it comes to opposition to Graham and Robert's position here, the number one bit of opposition, clearly they're going to find, is the age. And academics don't want to play with no 12,000-year-old Sphinx or whatever, right? So you're going to get opposition from that right off the bat. Instead of archaeoastronomy, or a 12,000-year-old Giza plateau, the focus in the academic community tends to be on the creation myth that Zep Tepi is associated with, and the symbolism one should expect to find with this in mind. For example, a UCLA Encyclopedia of Egyptology article by German Egyptologist Klaus Kuhlmann on the symbolism of the pharaonic thrones, he says, "Thrones usually stood on a dais inside of a kiosk, elevating the ruler well above his subjects and displaying his supreme social rank. At the same time, the arrangement was meant to evoke a comparison with the sun god resting on the primordial hill at the moment of the creating of the world. The enthronization of the pharaoh was thought to be a perpetuation of this cosmic act, which was referred to as the first time, Zep Tepi." So the creation myth that he's referring to here basically says that there was a flood and that the first mound of earth to come through it, like the primordial mound, was associated with the Ben. You might have the Bennu bird that was perched on it. You might have the god Adam that came up on it, sitting with his lotus flower. There's a couple different versions of the myth, but they do involve this stone, this primordial pokey mound coming up through the earth. They're a little difficult to translate from the original text, but I'll put some links down below if you want to read.
To the throne symbology, I just want to add, as it's kinda connected to other religions in a sense of practice, that, for example, in Catholic Mass, we have this ritual with bread and wine to turn to flesh and blood of Jesus Christ. It's in principle the same as the Pharaoh sitting on the throne. We do it to not only remind ourselves about sacrifice of Jesus Christ, we also do it to perpetuate his sacrifice and his life. Like, a lot of Catholic rituals are connected to life of Christ. The sacraments, the holy sacraments, the holidays, the different prayers, the rosary, a lot of this is to perpetuate his life as for us it's important to hold ray of hope in the world. I guess I understand it like that. Maybe some pope would say I'm saying some bullshit, but that's how I understand this. That we do it to perpetuate the hope that Christ gives us on the earth. So, yeah, with different rituals, you could get similar meanings probably, depending on how the things are framed. With animal sacrifices in Old Testament, I think it's I'm not really that researched to say how Jews understand this, but I don't think it's the same as as Catholic Mass. Also, many other Christian dominations have different views on different things. So, about especially Mass. So, yeah. Maybe if there will be good video, I will talk about how I would find this perpetuation of divine miracle. But yeah, let's resume.
Read the myth from people who've translated it or have made it more accessible to the modern brain. But basically the idea of the myth is piece of dirt comes through water. This piece of dirt has become the Ben stone, which is the top of a pyramid, right? The pyramidion. This piece of dirt was emulated inside of pyramids. They would put these in the they would leave a bound of bedrock in many of the pyramids to presumably to represent this mound of earth. It was a very important thing. As a matter of fact, I've spoken about it in my breakdowns of things like the Sphinx and whatnot. So anyway, it goes without saying, according to Egyptologists, right? This is extremely, extremely robust stuff. The Egyptologists that earlier told us that it does not need special emphasis, in the same paper, he's discussing an artificial language created during the Ptolemaic period that's known as Egyptian de Tradition. He says, when speaking of Egyptian de Tradition, the following qualifications immediately come to mind. It is reproductive. It is mimetic, which means the scribes deliberately tried to emulate, to copy, to imitate the linguistic standards of the past. It is conservative, which means that the scribes try to renew an age that was seen as a golden age, a time which itself was linked to the mythic time of the origins, the Tepi. In the footnotes of a paper discussing a pretty hard-to-find seahorse symbol, we'll read the following. The term Tepi is not attested in the pyramid texts, and even in the coffin texts. It appears only indirectly, in the parallel chapter of the later Book of the Dead. It refers to the time when the Creator God first appeared from the primeval chaos. The gods of Tepi are primeval beings carrying with them the potential of all creation and the future world order. The idea of Tepi was a time of the beginning of the order of creation. The cosmos began. A primeval mound came up and the floods of chaos were dispelled, and now the beginning of the order that we know today exists. This was said by people like Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock, and many other alternate historians believe this, myself included, that they believed that this was emulated in the heavens. This is a very common thing, was for people to believe what happened on the earth was emulated in the heavens. As above, so below is not pure Hermeticism. You'll find this all over the world. But in addition to that, we also see that it's something that's used as a touchstone for Egyptologists when they're looking at anything. They can be evaluating a throne, they can be evaluating a language, and they're going to use the lens of Zep Tepi. The knowledge that this was an important myth to the Egyptians is going to be part of their toolkit to evaluate an artifact. Which begs the question, how the fuck does Zahi Hawaas not know about this? I mean, really, how does that happen? I'll start by giving the man the benefit of the doubt, okay? We did see that the term was spelled differently, and between the English and the Egyptian version of it, the academic version and the version that you see in the pseudoscience, right? But, you know, Zahi Hawaas has been speaking publicly to the public about this stuff for how long? 40 years? To English-speaking people, and he's debated Graham, or at least started to debate Graham Hancock. You know, I find it very difficult to believe that that's the issue. I find it very difficult to believe that he wouldn't have understood that. Now, perhaps he misunderstood what Joe said.
So
Tell me, what is this list?
Egyptian, Zep Tepi refers to the first time or the first occasion.
Who said this?
This is an AI. It refers to a mythical golden age of Egypt where gods lived on earth and civilization was in its infancy. This period is often associated with the beginning of creation and the establishment of societal structures. Have you've never heard of that before?
No, and this is not true.
What do you mean it's not true? I mean, I'm getting this off of...
It never happened at all.
Okay, I'm not saying it happened. I'm just saying that this is something that's referred to.
I never heard about it. It is not true. It does not exist at all.
Even if it doesn't exist, the myth of it exists.
Listen, Joe. Why do I have to go to a myth? Of people create stories.
If you go to Wikipedia,
I don't care about Wikipedia.
I understand.
I care about.
But it doesn't look like that, does it? So I'm confused, right? It's like, after just making a mistake, trusting a reputable news source, I'm a little less inclined to say, okay, what it seems to me is right here. But it sure seems like Zahi doesn't know what this is. But that can't be the case, all right? The other Egyptologists use this for evaluating everything. He's been doing this forever. He's like the #1 dude. There's no way he doesn't know what Zep Tepi is. I mean, you'd have to show me a clip of the guy saying, oh, the King's List doesn't go back 30,000 years. Oh, or carbon dating is fake, or some crazy shit like that for me to even entertain the idea that he doesn't know what every Egyptologist seems to know.
Have you heard about about the King's List, right? The old King's List that goes back 30,000 whatever years.
Who said that?
You never seen it? It's not in hieroglyphs.
This is not true.
It's not true?
No. This is a speculation from people who knows nothing.
What do you base the dates on? Do you base it on carbon isotope?
No, we don't. We based dating on the evidence that we discover.
Right, but
like
some of it is based on carbon, right?
No,
carbon
I don't believe in carbon date 14 at all.
You don't?
No.
Why not?
Carbon date 14 never give an accurate dating.
Okay, well, I guess...
Generally, carbon dating... There isn't perfect method to tell time. There never was there. I don't know if there never will be. The thing with the carbon dating, it's on presumption that that effects of the decay of carbon are constant, but it can depend on some things that could be in nature. like really strong radiation from sun. But at least from what we understand, it's more often accurate that not. Well, but still, yeah, if you don't like believe in carbon dating, you still need something to like be bedrock of your theory about when you need bedrock for your chronology. You need something to tell you about. So, like, if you say that, like, hieroglyphic chronology doesn't matter, and say that carbon dating doesn't matter, then what does matter? Like, guy, dude, you need to, if when you discredit these two things, at least keep something concrete, not just general evidence. Like, what, like, this is logical fallacy. You dodge argument with faulty logic. It's so fucking idiotic. And he's archeologist. Also guys seems really annoying to talk with. I saw him only in this video, but dude, it's I don't think I want to see him talk anymore.
Guess we need to talk about the King's List soon, don't we? Or carbon dating. Do I really need to cover carbon dating? Do you guys know how carbon dating is, right? You know how that works, right? Let me know down below what I need to cover. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for understanding that sometimes I make mistakes. And thanks again to Therese for not, screaming and yelling the second that she saw that I got something wrong, instead of having a polite conversation with me about it, even though me and her aren't, our friends aren't friends. But anyway, and yes, there will be a video coming about Sage Wall. This is going to be about a month from now and stuff. I'm waiting on some more data to come in, and I'm talking to the landowner a little bit about he wants to make sure and keep everything in his ducks in a row as far as the tourism and stuff goes there. So anyway, that video will be coming soon, about a month. I'm getting ready to go to Cosmic Summit very soon, guys. You should come and check it out. It's going to be tremendous. There's going to be a whole lot of us there. And they do after parties and stuff. I've seen pictures of George in a damn disco suit. And I don't do the disco duck stuff, but I do Fortnite dances. So you should totally come and check it out. It's going to be great. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Okay. So goodbye, and remember, when you shine, darkness fades. Bye.